And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the brand new, long-awaited DJI Mavic 3. This drone is absolutely amazing. It's the most powerful drone I've ever used, and this is why today I wanted to do a full in-depth review of what I think of this new drone, because I've been working with it for already about 2 months for the official launch of the DJI Mavic 3. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly encourage you to go check out my launch video right now. We took a lot of time to create like a whole little movie and do something more than just a little drone video, but in the end do like a whole little film about a drone, and I'm really stoked with the outcome. So in this video I will show you guys absolutely everything about this drone and tell you like my personal experience and what I think of it. We will start off with the camera because this is the most important thing. Then we will talk about the battery because they have some brand new batteries. Then we talk about the overall body of the drone, then the controller, brand new controller as well. And then last, I will do a conclusion with my own personal opinion about this drone. So before starting everything, let's take like a first quick little look at this drone. So it has like a brand new cover that kind of wraps the whole drone around. So you take it off like this. It's super easy actually to take it off and put it back on. It's holding everything together, the propellers as well, so I really like it, and just looks badass for real. I really like it. So yeah, that's the new cover, and then when you open it, it's just kind of the same shape as what we've always known with Mavics. Alright, so this is kind of how the drone looks like when it's unfolded and ready to fly. And there are actually 2 versions of this Mavic 3. There is the Cine one and the normal one. I will talk a little bit about this later, talk about the differences and everything. But now let's start off with the camera. Alright, so both Mavic, the normal one and the Cine one, have the same camera. It's a Hasselblad with a 4/3 sensor. It's the first drone of this size having such a big sensor, which is absolutely amazing. The image quality you get out of this camera is like, I've never had such a quality on a drone. Like the sharpness, the amount of details and everything is absolutely amazing. It has a 24mm lens compared to the Air2S. The Air2S had a 22mm lens, which is a little bit wider, and the Mavic 2 Pro had a 28mm, which makes it a little bit more zoomed in. So this camera can record at 5.1K up to 50 frames per second, and it can also record up to 120 frames per second in 4K. Unfortunately, I haven't shot any slow-mo stuff, so I haven't shot anything at 4K 100 or 4K 120 because I was only shooting landscape stuff with the Mavic for my launch video. So yeah, I cannot show you guys any footage, but to what I've seen, it actually looks really good, but I'm not really gonna talk in depth about the slow-mos in this video. Alright, so regarding the aperture, it's not a fixed aperture. It can go from f2.8 to f11, unlike the Air2S, which had a fixed aperture. So I think, like, I mean, this is just basic things, but having the ability to change the aperture is actually a lot more convenient when shooting and flying. If you're up there, like the lighting conditions changes, then you can quickly change the aperture without having to touch the shutter speed. So that's something really good that I was a bit missing on the Air2S. In the end, with the Air2S, it kind of worked out, but I had to be like really precise with the ND filters, use more ND filters and stuff like this. And talking about ND filters, they are actually right here. So I got 2 different boxes with the Mavic Cine, going from actually ND4, yep, ND4, all the way up to 100 to 512, which I think is useless. So basically one box goes from 4 to 32, so 4, 8, 16, 32, and then the other box goes from 64 to 512. I don't really know why you would use these. It's useless, so not gonna use these at all. I use them a lot on the Air2S because of the fixed 2.8 aperture, but on this one, if you only have 4, 8, 16, 32, I think it's more than enough. And it's just like with all other drones, you just put them in front of the lens. It's just super easy, and it just even with 2 different lenses, it just works out. So yeah, ND, you only need 4, 8, 16, 32, and you're good to go. Also, the lens flare that creates the main lens are absolutely stunning. Here on the footage, there's no overlays, it's just straight out of camera, and I absolutely love it. So now let's talk about the very interesting stuff and innovation is that this new drone records ProRes footage. Careful, only the Cine one records ProRes, the normal one records H.265 at 10-bit. For the launch we had both drones, the normal one and the Cine one, but in the end all the footage you saw in my launch video was recorded with the Cine one. So all of the shots you're gonna see in there were actually shot in ProRes, which actually gives you more flexibility in post-production to really change the colors and make them look the way you want them to look. As you can see, I'm really happy with the color grading I've been able to do. This is probably one of the most pleasant footage I've ever color graded. In this video I also used a red Komodo shooting in RAW, and mixing the red footage together with the footage coming from the Mavic 3 actually worked perfectly, because I've been able to do just as much on the Mavic 3 as I've been able to do on the red RAW footage. So in my opinion, it's one of the best footage I have ever color graded, and I am super stoked with how it was handled in post-production and everything. And also another very interesting thing to know is that when you're shooting DLOG on the Mavic 3, you will be stuck at 400 ISO, you cannot go lower, which will make your images brighter. So this is just a little thing to have in mind. And the other thing is also that the DLOG footage from the Mavic 3 is a lot more flat than the DLOG footage from the Air2S or from the Mavic 2 Pro. So it will require a bit more work in post-production, but as well it will give you like more flexibility to actually make the image look the way you want it to look. So yeah, that's about it for the color grading. All in all, ProRes DLOG is absolutely stunning, and I had a lot of fun color grading everything. Also, another very important thing regarding the camera is the dynamic range. It has 12.8 stops of dynamic range. During the shoot, I really never felt like it wasn't enough or whatever. Just felt good flying. Usually I always shoot when the light is low, so when I have some good lighting conditions around golden hour, a little bit before golden hour until blue hour. So yeah, like never had any issues. Sometimes we shot during complete bright daylight, and it was doing fine around the sun, maybe a little bit burnt, but yeah, dynamic range is totally good on this drone. Alright, so now let's talk about the low light capabilities of the camera. In terms of ISO, it can go from 100 ISO to 6400. As I said earlier, 100 is only when you don't shoot DLOG, so when you shoot DLOG it's only starting from 400, but yeah, overall it's 100 from 6400. We've tried to shot in really dark environments, pumping up the ISO to the max at 6400 to see how it looks, and the footage is not usable at all. As you can see, it's looking really bad. I don't know if there's gonna be like a new firmware or something, but shooting when it's dark, 6400 is not usable at all for sure. So the way you can work around it is to actually plan your shoot and shoot a little bit earlier when it's not too dark. So when we saw this, then what we did is we shot around blue hour, maybe, yeah, we started shooting around blue hour until it started going too dark, and that way we had that feeling of darkness in the video without having to go all the way to the top of the ISO. So in these shots you see right now, I was at like 1600 ISO, first 800, then went up to 1600, and then when it got too dark, we stopped. So the footage straight off the camera is still pretty noisy, but when you use the denoiser, it's doing totally fine, and you can definitely use it in an edit. So that's about it for the main camera. Now let's talk about the top camera, which is the zoom. So the lens in here has an aperture of f4.4, and it has, like the camera up here, has a 1/2 inch sensor. If you zoom in from 1 to 4 times, it's gonna digitally zoom in the main lens, and then after 4, it's gonna switch straight to 7 times, and when you add 7 times, it actually switches to the top camera, I mean the top lens. And then after 7 times, it's gonna digitally zoom again. So if you want the best quality while using the zoom, only use it at 7 times, because this is where you actually use the telephoto. And then after this, it's gonna digitally zoom again. So yeah, just 7 times. For now, and with the current firmware, you are stuck at 4K 30 frames per second and everything auto. So I haven't used it in the edit, But I've talked with DJI and they told me that normally they're gonna release a new firmware that will allow you to use the top camera, the zoom camera, in manual mode without being stuck in everything auto and 4K 30. And once it's gonna be the case, I think it's really gonna open up new opportunities to capture actually some amazing footage and having like 2 drones in one, kind of. Because I really dig the look of like the zoomed in footage, because it actually looks like it's being shot from a chopper with the background looking a lot bigger, making that parallax effect. I think that looks amazing and really cinematic. So I'm really looking forward to use more of this and hopefully get a firmware that will allow me to shoot everything manually. So when DJI released the Air2S, they released a new gimbal mode called FPV Mode, which actually makes the gimbal and the camera follow the movements of the drone without keeping the gimbal always straight. So I think that's a really cool idea to get that FPV feeling, but to me, the footage is not really smooth when we're going from right to left or stuff like this. So it's kind of the same on the Mavic 3. The Mavic 3 has the FPV mode, but I'm not a big fan of it because I don't think it's really smooth. So what I prefer doing, since it's recording 5K, I do this in post-production, so I can zoom in a little and then move with the rotation and give that sort of FPV feeling like I did on this specific shot, and I really dig the look of it. All right, so now last thing about this camera, let's talk a little bit about photos. So all of these are photos I've captured with this new Mavic 3. The main camera is capturing RAW in 20 megapixels, which I mean is really good. It's always been really good on the Air2S and the 2 Pro. It's been perfect as well. The 2 Pro does 20 megapixels as well. On the top lens, the zoom one, for now it's only capturing JPEG, but once again DJI told me they're going to release normally a new firmware allowing you to shoot RAW photos with the zoom lens. And another thing, on the top lens, it's not shooting 20 megapixels, it's shooting 12 megapixels. So yeah, just another thing to know. All right, so now that we are done with the camera, which is the most important part, let's talk about a new little revolution, is the battery. So the battery is completely different. It has a whole new look and is coming in the butt of the drone like this. And the revolution is that on the paper, the Mavic 3 can fly for 46 minutes, which is absolutely amazing. On the paper, the Mavic 2 Pro could fly for 31 minutes. In real life, I think the Mavic 2 Pro was more around 25 minutes max. Same with the Air2S, maybe 23, a little bit less I think than the Mavic 2 Pro. This one in real life, after having used it for more than a month, I think it's definitely not 46 minutes. I would say it's more around kind of 35 minutes, yeah. Let's say you're shooting for golden hour, you know it's happening super fast, you don't have that much time. So the super cool thing is now that you have longer flight capabilities, you don't have to actually come back, land, change the battery, and then go back up. All of this is just gonna be moments you're gonna lose, not being able to capture different angles of the place you're in. So yeah, being able to actually shoot the whole golden hour with just one battery saves a lot of time and gives you the opportunity to shoot a lot more different angles and everything. For example, all of these shots that I'm showing you right now were all shot during one golden hour with only one battery without having to come back and land. So I think that's really, really cool and gives even more creative opportunities to actually make the most of the good lighting conditions. And then just a little word about the charging of these batteries. So you have this charging hub that allow you to actually charge 3 different batteries at a time, 1, 2, and 3. And the important thing I wanted to know about it is that charging time, since the batteries are bigger, charging time is quite a bit longer than the Mavic 2 Pro and a lot longer than the Air2S. The batteries on the Air2S are really small, so they charge really fast. On the Mavic 3, yeah, just gotta count a bit more, just for you to know when you're gonna plan your shoot or whatever. If you need to recharge in between or whatever, it's gonna take a little while to have them full. So now let's talk a little bit about the body of the drone. So regarding size and weight, to me the size is actually kind of exactly the same as the Mavic 2 Pro. and the weight as well, because the Mavic 3 is 900 grams and the Mavic 2 Pro is 907 grams. So slightly lighter, but I don't think you will see a difference in your backpack. Then when it comes to the Air2S, obviously the Air2S, as you can see, is a lot smaller and lighter. So this is the Air2S compared to the Mavic 3. Of course, it's a lot smaller. The Air2S is 595 grams, while, as I said, the Mavic 3 is 900 grams. So yeah, a lot smaller, a lot lighter, but yeah, that's just normal, I would say. So talking about the body of the drone, the thing you need to know is that inside the Mavic 3 Cine, you have a 1 terabyte storage, SSD storage. On the normal one, you only have 8 gigabytes. So yeah, the difference between the normal one and the Cine one is just the ProRes only on the Cine, and then the 1 terabyte SSD is only in the Cine. You don't have it on the normal one. And the other super important thing that you will need to know is that when you're shooting ProRes on the Cine one, you can only record it in the 1 terabyte SSD storage, which to me is a big problem, to be honest. Why? Because, as you know, I love taking risks with the drone. I never plan on crushing it, but you never know what's gonna happen. And this is why with previous drones, I had different SD cards. And once I was like, okay, this shot is a banger, I need to keep it. I was just changing the SD cards, keeping the one with all the shots in my backpack so it's secure, and then doing the next flight with the new empty SD cards. That way, in case I crash, once again, you never know what's gonna happen, but in case I crash, I don't lose any of the footage if I cannot get the drone back. Since you record everything inside the drone, you cannot really do this. All right, so another very important thing to know is that the ProRes footage creates huge files, which means that your SSD is gonna be full pretty quickly. During our time in the Dolomites shooting for the launch video, I think the max I could shoot without having to empty the drone was like 3 days. After 3 days, it was full. I already had 1 terabyte. So yeah, the files are a lot bigger than on the Air2S or on the Mavic 2 Pro. This is something to know. And yeah, this is something to have in mind when planning your shoot. You need to be able to empty it, or maybe, I don't know, don't shoot too much or delete some stuff or whatever, but this is something very important to know. And then the other very important thing to know is that when you want to transfer the files from the Mavic 3 to your laptop, you have to plug it into the laptop and you have to turn the drone on with the battery. I haven't found any solution for this right now, but basically, like, when it's going to be plugged in your laptop, it's going to recharge the battery, but the fact that the drone is on actually discharge the drone more than it gets from the laptop. So when the SSD was totally full at 1 terabyte, I haven't been able to empty everything with only 1 battery. So I had to empty like half of it until then the battery died. Then I had to change the battery and empty the rest of the files. And yeah, also the transfer was quite long. If like all your batteries are dead and you don't have any options to recharge them and you want to empty the drone, then you can't. When I did my DJI Air2S review, I flew in some super extreme conditions. So I flew the Air2S under the rain, in some super windy conditions, in some super cold conditions at like -20, and it did fine in all kinds of environments. Unfortunately, with the Mavic 3, I haven't had any opportunities to fly it in super extreme conditions. But since the Air2S is smaller and lighter and did well in the cold, in the rain, and especially in the wind, I would say the Mavic 3 is doing just as good and even better because it's bigger, stronger, and it flies faster as well. And then regarding speeds, I'm talking about it, on the DJI website, they say it's flying at 68 kilometers per hour, I think a little bit more, which is just a little bit faster than the Mavic 2 Pro, but I would say, yeah, it's just the same. They're all going like super fast. So yeah, kind of similar as the Mavic 2 Pro regarding speed. All right, so that's about it for this beast of a drone. Now let's talk about the controller you get when getting the Mavic 3 Cine. So this is a brand new controller. It has the built-in screen. It makes it a little bit heavier, but I have loved shooting with it instead of always having to take your phone, put it in and everything. Let's say sometimes your phone is running out of battery and everything. here you only use the screen when you're controlling the drone, and it's really good. I just love it. You still have like the 3 different modes with cine, normal and sports, which is really cool. Like you can set all of them the way you want. You can have your own settings for the cine mode, for the normal mode, and for the speed mode, which is really cool. But as you know, I'm always sending it, so most of the time I'm in speed mode. No, but yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, I think the interesting thing you need to know about this new controller is the battery life. To my experience, battery life is a lot less on this controller, since it has to power the screen and everything, than when you're using like a normal controller. So once again, this is something to know. I think if you shoot a lot, you can shoot for like, let's say 3 days without recharging. All right, and if you get like the normal Mavic 3, you get like a basic controller that looks like this. It's kind of the same you had on the Air2S and stuff like this. And also I have some people that asked me if you can link older remote controllers to the new Mavic 3, and the answer is no. I asked DJI and they told me that now they're using like a new transmission signal technology or whatever that is just new for the Mavic 3, so you cannot use older remote controllers. While we were there, I tried to actually link the Air2S controller to the Mavic 3 and it didn't work. So yeah, the answer is definitely no. All right, so that's about it. To me, this is the best drone I have ever used. Most powerful one, offering the best image quality, having like a flying 4/3 sensor, recording in ProRes, 5K. This is just like having like a normal big full frame camera just cruising around in the air, and like the image quality is absolutely amazing. Even if you're flying in not optimal lighting conditions, you will still get super nice footage. So yeah, this is definitely gonna be my go-to drone from now on, no question about it. It's offering the best image quality I have ever used on a drone for sure. Now regarding the price, the Mavic 3 Cine is 5,000 bucks. And the normal one is 2,200 bucks, and the Fly More combo is just a little bit less than 3,000, I think. So yeah, so for professional filmmakers, this drone is really a step up in terms of image quality and in terms of possibilities in post-production, especially for the colors and everything when you compare it to the Mavic 2 Pro or the Air2S. Now regarding photography, I think the difference in terms of photography is not that much. I mean, it's 20 megapixels, raw, just like the Mavic 2 Pro, just like the Air2S. So I would say if you're an adventure photographer, I would personally go for the Air2S if you're not shooting videos at all, because the photos are just as good, and then you have a smaller drone, easier to pack if you want to climb a mountain or whatever. So yeah, I would go for the Air2S if I was only an adventure photographer. Now that I do mainly videos, I mean I do both, but videos is what I love most. In terms of videos, the Mavic 3 is really a step up. Alright, so that's about it for this review. I really tried to go in depth and talking a little bit about everything and my own experience with this drone after having flown with it for 1.5 months kind of. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave comments down below, leave feedbacks, whatever. Make sure to subscribe as well to see the upcoming videos. And with that being said, I'm out and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!